On the night Madeleine McCann disappeared, her parents, Kate and Gerry, made a vow. Not a vow to the police or to the media, but a silent pact between the two of them. A pact that would bind them together forever, but would also become their sentence. This vow connects us to a universal fear, the fear of being faced with an impossible choice, where the truth means the destruction of everything we love, and a lie becomes the only way to protect what's left of our family. It's the pain of imagining a scenario so extreme that you no longer know who you would become. The Madeleine McCann case is not just the story of a missing child, it is the story of a pact. And today, we are not just going to list facts, we are going to step into Kate and Gerry's moral dilemma. And I promise to show you that the key to this case lies not in a piece of forensic evidence, but in the answer to a single question. What does the weight of a vow like this do to a human soul? To understand the pact, we first need to understand the door that was closed before it was sealed, the door to apartment 5A in Praia da Luz. Behind it, 3 small children were sleeping. In front of it, at a restaurant 50 meters away, their parents, Kate and Gerry McCann, were dining with friends. Doctors, respected people, in a moment of relaxation, a scene of normality. And it is precisely this normality that makes what comes next so terrifying. The inciting incident is not Kate's scream. It is the decision that precedes it, the decision to leave the children alone. That decision in itself is already a judgment. It connects us to an immediate discomfort, to the silent question, would I do that? It is negligence, and it is this negligence that becomes the fertile ground for tragedy. When Kate McCann runs back to the restaurant, screaming that Madeleine has been taken, the world sees the beginning of a kidnapping case. But for the couple, something different may have begun right there, the birth of a secret. The main conflict is not at first against an unknown kidnapper. It is an internal conflict against the crushing truth of their own failure as protectors. The world wanted a monster, an external villain. And perhaps in that moment of absolute panic, they realized that giving the world the monster it wanted was the only way to divert the gaze from the monster they feared most, their own negligence and its fatal consequences. The pact was not born from a cold plan. It was born from panic, from the primal need to survive a mistake that could destroy everything. The story of the kidnapping became the first wall built around the secret. The first vow was to not admit the initial failure, and from there each new lie would be another brick in that wall, trapping them deeper and deeper inside their own fortress. Once the pact is sealed, life transforms into a performance. Kate and Gerry McCann were suddenly no longer just parents. They were the protagonists of the biggest manhunt in modern history. And the entire world became the audience and the jury. The tension escalates when the performance begins to show cracks. The first obstacle was not the police, but human psychology itself. Grief has a universal language, and the couple's behavior, to many, did not speak that language. Gerry's coldness, his almost business-like focus on creating a media campaign, Kate's controlled pain, which rarely broke in public. To the skeptics, this was proof of guilt. But psychology offers us another lens, a more complex one: emotional numbness. Faced with extreme trauma, the mind can simply shut down. The coldness would not be an absence of feeling, but an excess of it so overwhelming that the brain creates a circuit breaker to avoid collapse. The pact here gains a new layer. It would not just be to deceive the world, but to protect themselves. A dysfunctional defense mechanism, a folie à deux where they cling to the kidnapping narrative, because the alternative, the truth of what happened in the room, is psychologically unbearable. And then, science enters the scene, complicating everything. The British sniffer dogs, Eddie and Keela, trained to detect the scent of a corpse and human blood. They alert in the apartment. In the trunk of the car the couple rented 25 days after the disappearance. For the Portuguese police, led by Gonçalo Amaral, it was the missing proof. The smell of death confirmed the theory of an accident and a cover-up. But forensic science is a double-edged sword. The samples collected did not produce a conclusive DNA result. There was the scent, but not the proof. This scientific ambiguity was the fuel that ignited the public debate. For those who believed in the pact, the dogs were confirmation. For those who defended the couple, It was flawed science and a witch hunt. The McCann's pact was now not just against their own conscience, but against dogs, police officers, and global public opinion. The point of no return in the story of this pact doesn't happen in an interrogation room, but in a bookstore. In 2008, the chief inspector of the investigation, Gonzalo Amaral, publishes the book Maddie, the Truth of the Lie. In the book, he doesn't just suggest, he directly accuses there was an accident, a death, and a cover-up. The theory that was a whisper behind the scenes of the investigation was now a shout in the public square, printed in hundreds of thousands of copies. The book's publication is the event that makes war inevitable. For Kate and Gerry, backing down was no longer an option. Admitting any failure, any small inconsistency would be seen as a confession. The pact of silence, which perhaps began as a defense mechanism, now solidifies into a legal and media war strategy. They sue Amaral. The lawsuit drags on for years, a brutal battle for the narrative. Who was the victim? The couple who lost their daughter and were still being accused, or the inspector who dared to say what many were thinking? This legal battle forces them to double down on the kidnapping story. Every interview, every anniversary of the disappearance, every appeal for information becomes another layer of concrete over the original secret. They can no longer go back. The pact has led them to a point where the only way to survive is to keep performing, keep fighting, keep denying. They are trapped, not by the law, but by their own vow. Their life becomes the personification of Nietzsche's dilemma. What is done out of love is beyond good and evil. But what happens when love, whether for a lost child, for your partner, or for your own survival, forces you to build a prison around your own soul? And the question that remains, the hook that pulls us to the climax is, can a pact like this be kept forever? Or is there a breaking point, a moment when the truth, like water, finally finds a crack to leak through? The strange thing about this story is not a smoking gun or a recorded confession. It's a dilemma, the dilemma that may have given birth to the pact. To understand it, we need to go inside apartment 5A on that night, in the minutes between the panic and the arrival of the police. Imagine the scene. Your 3-year-old daughter dead, an accident, a fall, a wrong dose of a sedative. Guilt suffocates you, panic blinds you. You are in a foreign country. The law here is different. You know that if you call the police, the truth of the negligence will come out. You will be arrested, your medical career destroyed. Your other 2 children, the twins sleeping in the other room, will be taken by the local social services, handed over to strangers in a strange land. You have lost one daughter, and now because of the truth you will lose the other 2. You will lose everything. Your partner, the person you love, looks at you, the same panic in their eyes, and then an idea emerges. A terrible, and at the same time logical idea, a way out. What if we say she was taken? A kidnapping, an external enemy, a monster that is not you. It's a lie, a monstrous lie, but it's a lie that perhaps saves what's left of your family. It's a lie that keeps your other children with you. This is the moment of Kierkegaard's leap of faith, the edge of the abyss. On one side, the truth, a certain fall to destruction. On the other, the lie, a desperate leap into the darkness. They don't jump out of courage, they jump out of fear. And in that instant, the pact is sealed, not with words perhaps, but with a look, a nod, a silent understanding. You and me, against the world, forever. The vow is not about hiding a crime, it's about protecting the living. It is the choice for the lesser evil. And that choice, made in seconds, will define the rest of their lives. The door to the truth is not just closed, it is sealed, and the key is swallowed. What happens to the soul after a vow like this? The pact worked, in a way. They were not arrested. They did not lose their other children, but the vow that saved them also became their prison. A prison without bars, but infinitely more effective. The pact was not a life raft that saved them from drowning. It was an anchor that kept them together, yes, but that chained them forever to the bottom of the same dark ocean. Unable to return to the surface, unable to breathe the air of truth. Every interview, every appeal, every controlled tear is the sound of that anchor's chain dragging. Spoke of the shadow, the part of ourselves that we repress, the dark basement of our mind where we lock away the things that shame us. The problem, Jung said, is not having the basement. We all have one. The problem is pretending it doesn't exist. The McCann's pact was the decision to lock the door to that basement and throw away the key. But what is locked inside never stops scratching at the door. And the strange behaviors, the coldness, the rigidity, are the sounds of those scratches leaking through the cracks. The relentless search for Madeleine, which to the world seems like an act of hope, takes on a new meaning from this perspective. It becomes a form of penance, an external search for something they know will not be found, to compensate for the refusal to do the internal search, to face what is locked in the basement. It is a frantic activity to drown out the constant hum of silence, and here lies the most invisible and painful emotional contradiction of all, the desperate desire for their daughter to be found versus the terrifying fear that the truth will be found. They live in this unbearable duality. They need to keep hope alive for the charade to survive. But their biggest nightmare is perhaps not that Madeleine never shows up. Their biggest nightmare is that one day her body shows up, because on that day, the anchor would finally reach its final destination, and the weight of the pact would crush them for good. The resolution of the McCann's conflict, therefore, will never be found in a courtroom. The true resolution happened in that moment of the pact. By choosing the lie to protect their family, they defined their own destiny. Their character arc is not one of fall in the sense of being arrested, nor of ascension. It is an arc of stagnation, a perpetual straight line of performance. They are frozen in time forever in that night of 2007, condemned to relive the role of parents searching for a daughter they may know will never be found. Remember the reality. Anchor we started with, Nietzsche's phrase that what is done out of love is beyond good and evil. The McCann case is the dark rebuttal to that idea. It shows us that an act done in the name of love can, in fact, be the source of infinite suffering. The pact, made to avoid the pain of destruction, generated a different, more silent and corrosive pain, the pain of living an inauthentic life. The resolution for them is the absence of peace. It is the awareness that, to the rest of the world, they will always be the protagonists of a mystery, and to themselves the guardians of a truth that consumes them from within. The door to the truth was locked, and the sound of the key being swallowed echoes in every silence, in every interview, in every anniversary of the disappearance. In the end, what does this story teach us? The great lesson is not about crime or investigation. It's about the weight of secrets. A secret, especially a shared one, is not a void. It is a presence. It is the third occupant in a couple's bedroom. It is the unspoken word that makes all other words false. The McCann's pact shows us that you might be able to hide the truth from the world, but you can never hide it from yourself, nor from the person who made the vow with you. The secret becomes the hidden language of the relationship, an invisible chain that unites them in complicity and separates them in solitude. And this makes me think about the impact our own pacts of silence have on our lives. The small truths we sweep under the rug in our families, in our friendships to avoid a conflict, to maintain a fragile peace. Not on the scale of a tragedy, of course, but the mechanism is the same. Every unspoken truth creates a small fissure in trust, and over time these fissures can compromise the entire structure. The story of Kate and Gerry is a brutal reminder that peace built on a lie is more fragile than glass, and that sometimes the courage to face a painful truth is the only path to real freedom. My final opinion, after diving into the abyss of this case, is that the biggest error in judgment we make as the public is trying to define Kate and Gerry McCann as good or evil. They became something much more complex, guardians of a secret, and a secret of this magnitude has a life of its own. It rewrites your personality, dictates your emotions, controls your reactions. The coldness we see in them is not, in my view, that of a psychopath who feels nothing. It is that of a prisoner of war who, to survive the daily torture of interrogation, has learned to dissociate, to create a shell a skin of ice over a wound that never stops throbbing. The pact they made that night was not a single act. It is a vow that must be renewed every morning. Every time they look into each other's eyes, every time they see a photo of Madeleine, every time a journalist asks the same question. They are not just living a lie, they are actively in service to it. And this servitude, this devotion to a farce, is a form of self-imposed torture. Their true sentence is not one a judge could give. It is to live forever inside the crime scene, locked in the memory of that night, while pretending to the world that they are on the outside, looking for a key they swallowed themselves. And now, after all this, after walking along the edge of this abyss, I really want to know what this story has awakened in you. Did you see yourself in their dilemma? Do you believe that a pact like this can be justified by love or the protection of family, or is there no possible justification? Write it here in the comments. It doesn't have to be a thesis, it can be just one line, but let it come from the heart, from the place this story touched you. I will read every single one, because it is in sharing these reflections that we begin to understand the complexity of the human soul. Remember, not all silence is forgetting. For those who felt the weight of this analysis and understand that the truth is more complicated than it seems, our next meeting is already set. We will dive into the story of a different pact, the pact of an entire community. We will investigate the Escola base case in Brazil, where the lives of innocent people were destroyed by a collective lie, fueled by the media. The question we will answer is not who lied, but why it is so easy for us to believe a terrible story, even without proof. If you believe these stories need to be told, not as entertainment, but as a mirror for our own society, subscribe to the channel. Be part of this jury that seeks not culprits but understanding. And for those who feel that this work is more than a video, that it is a mission of depth in a world of superficiality, the Super Chat is our signal. It's the way of saying, keep digging, keep questioning. Every contribution is what allows us to keep this flame alive, the flame of analysis that is not content with easy answers. It is the gesture that says that stories like this need to be told this way. My commitment to you is to never give you a verdict, but to always give you the tools so that you can judge for yourself. Because the most important truth is not the one I tell you, it's the one you discover